Hello everyone, welcome to my channel and thank you for stopping by. Today's video is a lemon wreath compilation. The first two are brand new wreaths that I've made, and so if the video is off on some of the older, if the sound is off on some of the older ones, just please ignore. But I've got these ribbons and this lemon branch from Craft Outlet and this cute little lemon wreath frame from Craft Outlet as well. And all I'm going to do is I just want to place the little pick on the side, and so I'm just kind of spreading things out a little bit here, trying to get it nice and lined out for placement. And here I'm just gonna line it on the side because I don't want to cover up the green leaves. So I'm just taking a little zip tie, and sorry for being in the way. I'm trying to finagle the zip tie in the wreath frame and it wasn't really working. So before I tighten it all the way down, I just want to make sure it's in the proper place. And then I'll use my little zip tie gun and tighten it down and cut it off. Then the extra stem, I do go back in and I do cut that off as well. I have some old little cutters here, but it was a little difficult, but it did the trick. So I just go ahead and cut that down, and then I'm just going to form it just a little bit. Now, I don't think I showed it on camera, but I do go ahead and add a couple extra zip ties to hold it in place. Now, I got this beautiful ribbon from Sam's, and while I've bought several of them, this one I did not like. I did not realize it was as flimsy as it is. It is wired ribbon, but I like a really stiff ribbon that can hold its shape. And I mean, it ended up doing pretty good, and you'll see it at the end. But it just was not as stiff as I liked it. And what I did is I just burned the ends of it. But then I go back, and as I go on, I just quit burning the ends. It wasn't fraying. I was just worried that it would because how flimsy it was. So then I've got this other beautiful, I don't know if this is a lattice pattern or what, but I got that from Craft Outlet and I've had it for a while. I've just been using it over and over again. I think I actually used it in one of the old lemon wreaths that you'll see in the video later on. So my first set of ribbon loops is at 5 inches, then I go down to 4.5, and then I go down to 4. But I'm leaving the tails about 8 inches. But once I get it on the wreath frame, I do find that they're just a little bit too long, so I do go back and cut them. And I know I repeat myself when I say some of these things in my wreath tutorials, but I can't express enough to make sure that you cut a little longer on the ribbon. That way, if it's too long, you can always cut it off. I used to be one of those that was trying to be really frugal with my ribbon, and I've messed up a couple of things in the past and just realized that I ended up wasting more ribbon doing that, cutting it too small, and I not like it. So then I'd end up wasting more ribbon that way, in my opinion. Excuse me. And here I just have my little pipe cleaner, and I tighten it down, and I do struggle a little bit here. This was a pretty tight woven grapevine wreath, but I actually do get it in there, and I just tightened down my pipe cleaners really tight, and it stayed pretty good. Now you'll start seeing me trim it off. I trim off probably about a good 1.5 to 2 inches on each of the tails, but hey, that's one of the good things about getting ribbon on these 50-yard spools. You won't really miss it too much. I try not to cut that much off if I'm using particular spools that are only like 10 yards. But I try to gauge what I like correctly, so I'm not being too wasteful. But it's the inevitable. When you're making wreaths, when you're crafting, you're going to be wasteful to some extent. It's just a matter of how wasteful are you going to be. And so what I decided to do is, because you could see in my pics, there's kind of gaps in between the lemons, and I thought it would look better if I had bows, but my eyes just kept drawing to the gaps. So I just cut 2 long tails of the ribbon, and I'm making loops because I'm gonna actually zip tie them in between the lemons. And so I have them zip tied down. Sorry, I thought I was recording, but I wasn't. So now, just to add a little bit of embellishment and to kind of cover up those zip ties where those tails were tightened down, I went ahead and added some little flowers. So tell me what you think. Okay, on to the next wreath. I have this beautiful Picture Perfect Day lemonade, along with these ribbons. Those were from Craft Outlet. A 14-inch wire frame from the Dollar Tree. Some pipe cleaners. I think I got those from Hobby Lobby. And what I don't show is I got the black and white checkered mesh from Hobby Lobby from Christmas. I had already cut them up though. So again, if you're used to my videos, I'm going to put in the 2 inner rings of a section, 1 pipe cleaner, and in the bottom 2 rings, I'm going to put 2 pipe cleaners. So one section is what's in between the 2 brackets. So right there is one section. And here I cut my Deco mesh at 40 inches long. And then I'm just doing the woodland cruffle. This is probably like my favorite method of wreath making that I do. I just curl up one end a couple of times, clothespin it together, and switch it around, and roll it up another 3 times, the other end another 3 times, and then walk my fingers up to do a ruffle. And then I just put it right into the pipe cleaner. And here I am. I'm just going to show you another time. And I do like to make sure that my little curls that I make are at the bottom. I've just got used to doing it that way. It doesn't matter if you put it at the bottom or the top, it's all the same. So here is the last one I'm going to show you, and it's to show you how big and fluffy these wreaths actually get, because I'm just going to put in three pipe cleaners worth, which is in one section, and you'll see here in a second how big it gets. Now I do 40 inches long on these. You don't have to. I just take one roll and I cut it. Oh well, I take one roll, which is 360 inches long, and then I use a roll per half of the wreath frame. So I just divide that by 9, and look, this is half of the wreath frame filled up, and this is the full wreath frame. So it is really big and fluffy. So I just don't like any remnants left over. Some people cut it at 30 inches. You could do that if you want. This is a very pliable, it's almost like a fabric mesh. It's very pliable. So it's not as bad. If I was using maybe more of a value mesh that was a little more thick and kind of stiff, where it's not like this kind of mesh, I probably would go ahead and just do 30 inches. It really depends on the feel and texture of the Deco mesh for me. So I just take 2 of the ribbons. I cut at 14 inch. I had already dovetailed them, and I just find the middle of them and I put them right on top of the pipe cleaner. So I cut these two pipe cleaners in the middle down because I knew I was going to put my sign there. So here I've got my little sign, and I'm just going to attach it to the crossbars on the wreath frame. You'll see here in a second. You got to make sure that you actually have your pipe cleaners around a metal ring, because here I was twisting it, and you don't see it, I was twisting it, but I didn't have it around anything. But see, I was twisting for no reason, so I had to go back in and verify again that I was around one of the middle rings, and I was able to attach it successfully. Now I'm just going to go ahead and cut that little piece off, because I know I want to put a bow up there. And so there's an extra piece of pipe cleaner right there that I'm going to add in an extra set of tails. And I do think I actually didn't have enough, so I wasn't really sure, but I cut 14 sets. And I ended up needing one more set, so I do go back and cut it. But I just crisscross the ribbons, find the middle, pinch it, and add it right on top of the pipe cleaner. And I just cut those down, the pipe cleaners down, and tuck it in so no one gets hurt, no one by that. So here I am thinking, and this is where I'm like, okay, I'm going to need another set of tails. So I'll go ahead and cut another set at 14 inches. And then you'll see that I dovetailed it. And here I'm just doing it over. There's like a little, one of the pieces was a little boxy. It wasn't at a point, and I don't like that. So I had to do it over. Then I just add it in there, and that will be my last set of ribbon tails. Because to the right, I'll put another bow right there on top. So I'll have one on top and one on bottom, and you'll see it looks really pretty. So what I did is I just took whatever ribbon was left on the spools, and I unrolled it from the spool, and then I cut it in half because I knew I was going to make two bows. So then it just leaves me with however much ribbon that I'll play with to make my bows. And then I do add an extra green ribbon, 1.5 inch ribbon that I got from Sam's. It was a big 50-foot roll for like $8. It's amazing. So I'm doing the loops at 6 inches, and I'm doing the tails at 8 inches. And I like to do sets of 3 or odd numbers or whatever, and just because of how I don't know, it just, I guess the way the loops and the tails are, I'm just crazy. Like the first time I used this ribbon, the tail went down, and then so the next time I used the ribbon, the tail went up. So it's just alternating where the tails and the loops are going to fall is the reason why. So I don't really have much left of this ribbon. So what I'm doing is I was just kind of playing with it and see what I liked and where I wanted to put it. So it was the same with the this ribbon here. Had I not cut the extra 14 inches off for that extra set of tails, I would have had enough to make 2 loops for each set, but since I did, I only had enough to make 2 loops on the first set and 1 loop on the second set, with the exception of the green one. And with the green one, I do add a little small loop for it to be in the center. And I take it off carefully, and I say carefully because I've taken it off pretty quickly and not paying attention, and I've had my ribbon my bow unfold, and it was irritating, but my fault. Anyways, so I put my pipe cleaner around it and I tighten it down as much as I can. In here I'm just trying to get in between the mesh to find the metal ring to attach the bow to. And then once I do that, I will go ahead and I will fluff out my bow and arrange my tails in loops where I want them to be. I dovetail all of the 2-inch, all the 2.5-inch ribbon, and then for the 1.5-inch ribbon, I think I already pretty much cut them at an angle, excuse me, when I was creating it on the bow maker. But you could dovetail the 1.5, or you could cut it at an angle. I've actually seen where some wreath makers don't even cut their ends of their ribbon. Most of them do. I think I've seen a couple maybe that don't. But I like to do the finishing touch and do all of the cuts on the ends of the tails, just to give it that beautiful finish look. And this is a good time that if you want to make your tails a little bit smaller, you can cut a little bit extra off if you've made the tails a little too long. But I always find that 8-inch tail to start with is really good. I typically don't go, unless I'm doing one big bow, I'll do like a 14-inch tail as well as 8-inch tails. But if I'm doing bows like this where the tails are shorter, I always do an 8-inch tail. And then, like I said, once I get to, cutting everything and getting it where I need it to be, then that's where I determine if I want to cut them a little bit smaller. But here she is with all of the beautiful things on there. And I just love the lemon wreath look. So y'all let me know what you feel about this in the comments below. I thrifted this. You can't tell, but it's like a dark blue. And it's a wood frame. It had a picture and everything in it. I took the glass and picture out. And I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it, and it was this project. So I've actually had it for a while, and I kept trying to do it, but I just hadn't gotten around to it. So I had taken this big bushel of florals. It was like $6 from Walmart, and I kind of just split it in half. And then I make these little arrangements, the little sunflowers with blue, yellow, white flowers, the little lemons is absolutely adorable. So I had made one off screen and I zip tied them together, and then I'm taking larger zip ties and I zip tie each of the bundles to the bottom of the frame. Now it's absolutely up to you. I choose to put it at the bottom of the frame. That's really where I like it. But you can put it up at the top if you want. So absolutely up to you. Customize it your way. And I really didn't have to do, and I really didn't do anything, to be honest, other than take the glass and stuff out of there with that frame. I mean, it was just beautiful. I love it. So I'm taking this little 1.5-inch ribbon that I had got from the craft outlet, and I'm using my Easy Bow Maker from Deco Exchange, and I'm first starting off with 6-inch loops, 2 6-inch loops on both sides,
and then I go down to two 5-inch loops on both sides, then two 4-inch loops on both sides. And then, yes, I am struggling. This ribbon just kept getting more and more tangled up in itself, and it was just really frustrating me. It's not often that I use one ribbon to make a bow, and that's the only reason why this got really tangled up. But it all worked out in the end. Now, after I got my 4-inch loops on both sides, I do take and make a center loop, and then I just cut my last tail the length of my first tail, which was 14 inches. I always like to cut them a little bit longer because I don't know how long I'll end up wanting it on the product. And then I just actually go back and cut it down if I need to. Now, I do zip tie a pipe cleaner on the back of this, and that pipe cleaner is what I'll use to attach it to the frame. And then once I have all that done, then I'll just get to fluffing my bow, which you know is my favorite part of making a bow. Now, I will say I'm just a little OCD on how I like my bows, and I really didn't think about this bow like I should have. I'm used to using multiple ribbons, and so when I made this bow, gosh, if I could just spit it out. When I made this bow, the last tail was on the top, so it came out in the front, and I didn't like it as much. I like my tails to be more in the back. I struggled with it a little more, and it just didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, but it all turned out nice in the end.
It's going to be a little bit different where I'm not going to do a whole lot of talking. I'm just going to let you watch my creations, and I hope you enjoy the video. You guys have a very blessed day.
from Hot Mess and Hot Glue. So I'm going to start off by making my sign for my lemon wreath. And I've got this wood plaque from the Dollar Tree. I got this lemon fabric from Hobby Lobby, and then I have that blessed wood sign from Hobby Lobby as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take some of my Kills white chalk paint, and I'm going to paint the middle of the sign. So once that's dry, I take some Mod Podge and I just paint the edge of the signs, the tops and the bottom. And I'm going to Mod Podge some of that fabric on there. So I will add another coat of the Mod Podge on top just to make sure that this is secure and sealed. So then what I do is I take a little bit of jute and that I got from Walmart, and I actually just cover the edges where the paint and the fabric meet. Now I'd planned on putting the little jute string back in that I took off, but once I started trying to poke the hole back in, the fabric was just coming up, and so I just said forget it. I really didn't need that portion to hang it. So here I'm taking my hot glue and just actually hot gluing the word blessed to my sign. Now if you want to, you can paint it, but I actually like the natural wood on this. I do have some wood in my or burlap in my sign. Now I am taking my work wreath frame, which I just had a Dollar Tree wreath frame, and I took some Chanel stems and added 3 to each section, a total of 18. And then I've got my 21-inch Deco mesh from Hobby Lobby. Now I scrunched up the ends on one side, and I'm just taking a zip tie and attaching it to one of the crossbars on my wreath, and then just trimming off the excess. You don't have to trim off the excess. You can leave it there and tuck it in later. It's all up to you, but that's something that I like to do. So then I take the point of the zip tie. Sorry, I couldn't think of what it was called. I take the zip tie and I measure out 10 inches and I add it into one of my Chanel stems. Then from that Chanel stem, sorry, I'm all tongue-tied today. From that point, then I measure out another 10 inches and put that into the next Chanel stem. And I just go around doing that until all 18 Chanel stems are full. So now I've got some of this yellow Deco mesh that I'm cutting to 15-inch strips. And I'm just going to do a ruffle method. So I take the part where it curls and I make sure it's downward on my mat. And I just walk my fingers up the middle. And it kind of gives you like a little ruffle curl, not a curl, but it gives you a little ruffle, like a little bow tie, whatever you want to call it. And put those into the Chanel stems. Now make sure that you try to get it as even as possible, like so you're pinching in the middle of that ruffle and putting that into the chenille stem. Otherwise, one side will be higher, sitting higher than the other side, and you don't want that. So I'm not going to show you the whole process, but I did want to show you several times on how to do this. So I took my ribbon and I cut them to 14-inch strips, or that are going to end up being my tails, and I'm just dovetailing the ends of it just to make it all nice, pretty, and finished. And so then what I'll do is I'll take one of each and I'll put it on top of each other, find the middle point, pinch it in the middle, kind of run my fingers on the edge of the ribbons to give it that curl, and place it in the middle of the chenille stem. And here I think I did 16 tails. I didn't do the full 18 just because I know I'm going to put a bow on here, and wherever you put your bow you really don't have to have the tails, so you can save a little bit of your ribbon that way and have extra loops in your bow if you don't put tails in each of the chenille stems. But it's completely up to you. You can if you want to. So here I've got my ribbon cut into 30-inch pieces. I do have 2 of the 2.5-inch and then this 1.5-inch striped ribbon that I have. And all I'm doing is I cut 30 inches, folded it in half, dovetailed the ends, and now I'm measuring the folded end to 6 inches, pinching it at 6 inches, and then just alternating the direction of the loops as I'm grabbing them in my hand. And this is just going to help with the bow to make the loops and the tails go in different directions, so you're not really having to struggle too much when you're fluffing it out. Now you can definitely have all the loops going one direction if you want to, and all the tails in the opposite direction. That works just fine as well. Either or is actually great. They both turn out to be some beautiful bows. So I take 2 of my small zip ties and make one big one. And please don't do what I do here. This was a mistake that I made. I should have put my chenille stem in there as well, and I got a little too excited and tightened the bow down. The zip ties down over the bow, and as you see here, I can't get my chenille stem in there. So I tried to put my scissors in there so I can have a little room to put my chenille stem, and luckily this worked. And I didn't have to cut off my zip ties. I was able to just pull the chenille stem through. And here I am just making sure it's twisted on there really good. And I'll begin to fluff my bow as soon as I attach it to my wreath frame. Now for the challenge this month, definitely check out the playlist in the description box and check out all the wonderful crafters and everything they've made. Make sure you check out Melissa's and Lynn's channel as well. And now this is a monthly challenge that she does every month. The Keep It Simple challenge is basically creating anything you want, not really using tools or anything like that, but just the bare necessities to create beautiful DIYs or whatever it is that you choose to make. So as you see here, I'm just separating the tails and I'm separating the loops. Now with the tails, I'm taking it and kind of curving it onto my hand to give it a little more fluffed up, poofy look. And like I said, if you make the bow this method with the alternating loops on each end, you're going to get some tails that are going throughout the bow. Whereas if you were going to do all the loops on one end versus the tails on the opposite end, all your tails are going to be at the bottom and your loops are going to be at the top. So it's really however you want the end result to be. Like I said, I think they're both beautiful turning out this way. So I'm not really adding too much else, and with my Chanel stems I go ahead and kind of, well, I fold some of them down, and you can do that. It's a trick you can use, but I always like to fold mine down or curl it with a pencil. I don't like to cut it off, because if I choose to go back and add something onto my wreath, then I still have Chanel's stems that are long enough to be able to add to. So what I'm doing is I'm taking some of that 1.5 inch ribbon and I'm just cutting 12-inch strips so I can just make some loops for the bows, and I'm gonna kind of put that in every other Chanel stem that's on the bottom, but on the top I pretty much put them in all of the ones on the top, aside from where my sign is gonna go. Now, as you see on the back of my sign, I added 2 scrap pieces of painter sticks, and that was so when I use my staple gun here, it doesn't pierce through the wood in the sign. And this works out great. So if you guys ever have that problem when you're using the Dollar Tree signs, just add you a couple of crafts scrap wood on the back and glue it down, and it works just great. So now I'm just going to attach my sign, and then I'll continue going around adding the little green and white bows, and then I will add some small lemons as well. here's the finished product. I think it is so cute. I just am in love with the lemon decor. So please tell me what you think in the comments below, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and turn on all those notifications so you'll be able to see all of my new DIYs. Thank you for stopping by, and you guys have a blessed day. So for my last project, I have this Easter sign from the Dollar Tree where I just took off the little feet and the little raffia bow, and I am taking my Kills chalk paint and white, and I'm gonna give it a good couple of coats. I did not want any of the board showing. I wanted everything to be a pretty good bright white on here. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking the very ends and I am putting some Mod Podge on there. And again, I'm going to take some of the napkins from Hobby Lobby and I'm just going to Mod Podge it right onto the ends of the sign. And then once it dries, I do take a little sanding block from the Dollar Tree and I go ahead and just kind of run it over the edges to get all the excess tissue off of there. So once I have that done, I am just taking some of this beautiful ribbon from Hobby Lobby and I am going to add it next to the tissue paper just as a little extra decoration onto the sign. I do overlap the ribbon onto the napkin because I do want to cover up some of the edges where it would meet. And I have my ruler there because I was actually trying to measure things out to make sure they were pretty even on both sides. Now the back of the sign, I did not do anything with it. I didn't make it look finished or anything like that, but you guys definitely can. You can use the crafting paper, you can use felt, heck, you could probably even just peel off the paper and paint it, however you would like to do it. To me, it wasn't a big deal, so I just left it the way it was. So once I had that down, there was a saying that I had seen on a sign from Hobby Lobby, And I was actually just kind of looking to see where I could write it and how I needed to space it out. And all I'm doing right now is just penciling it in. I always like to pencil everything in first before I use my Sharpie, because I know if I went straight with the Sharpie, then I would really mess something up. So using the pencil first, it really helps me out. So once I have that written in pencil, then all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush Sharpie marker and use it to, excuse me, trace over the letters. And I really like using brush markers when I'm doing my lettering. It makes it just so much easier and smooth. So, as you can see, it says, "Where troubles melt like lemon drops." So I had this little styrofoam egg from Easter, and I painted it white, and then I painted it yellow. And now I just took a piece of greenery, some boxwood, and put it at the top for the leaves, and I'm going to attach it onto this ribbon. I put the ribbon on here in order so I could hang the door hanger, and I thought the little lemon would be such a cute little touch. So now that the sign is all complete, here is going to be the base. So what I have is 3 of the 5-gallon paintbrushes, and I have a couple of just cut off pieces of the, paintbrushes that I glued to the ends of the 3 large paint sticks. That way it'll stay in place. And then I'm taking some extra pieces that were scrap from another DIY that I did, and I'm just gluing those on, and that way I'll have something to hang the sign on. So I do use a combination of the Gorilla Wood Glue and the Gorilla Hot Glue. Gorilla Glue is just really, really great. I don't know if anybody else out there uses the Gorilla Hot Glue, but it is wonderful. I found it at Walmart one time and started using it, and I have not gone to anything else. So if you haven't tried it, I would suggest that you try it. So now what I'm doing is I have these small zip ties, and you can use large ones if you have them, but I have a ton of the small ones, and so I try to use them up where I can. And all I'm doing is actually zip tying some chenille stems on there. The zip ties will be tight enough that it will actually hold the chenille stems in place. If you didn't have zip ties, then you definitely could put a couple of chenille stems and tie them together and add them to the sign as well. I'm sure that's fine, but I really like using the zip ties. And so what I have here is I just had some old mesh from a different project, and this mesh came from Hobby Lobby. Now I typically like Hobby Lobby's mesh, but it's a little on the thin side sometimes. And so I took 3 of them and put them together so it wouldn't be as see-through. Otherwise, because when I tried to use one, when I tried to use one, it was just way too see-through, and you could see the wood and from the painter stick, and I just did not like that. I did not want that. So I tripled up on the green, which they were cut at 12 inches, and then I have the yellow, which I cut at 15 inches. And then all this here is just called the ruffle method, where you have the curl side going down, and you just run your fingers up the center of the Deco mesh, and it kind of gives you a ruffle, a bow tie, whatever you want to call it. and it makes it really nice. Now, I will say when you're doing this, make sure that you grasp it as much in the middle as you can, because if not, one side's going to be sitting higher when it's all together. When it's all set up, you'll have some parts of the deco mesh sitting higher than the other parts of the deco mesh, the ends, and so you may have a spot that looks a little too full versus another spot that looks a little too thin. So when you put it in the chenille stem, I just suggest kind of make sure that it's in the middle as best as possible. You know, I've talked to different people, and for some reason they are intimidated by these deco mesh wreaths and door hangers. All I can say, guys, is we all start somewhere, and what I've noticed over the years is that it's really, really hard to mess up on a wreath when it's deco mesh. When you start putting it in, it may not look so good, but by the time you have all your deco mesh and all your ribbons in, it's going to be gorgeous. So anybody who's thinking about doing one, I say just go for it. So now I have all of my deco mesh in my chenille stems, and so now I'm just going to cut my ribbons into 14-inch tails, and I'm going to dovetail them. So here, just as an added layer, I had some silver deco mesh from the Dollar Tree, and I cut those into 10-inch pieces. And what I do is I just fold it in half, making sure the loop is on opposite ends when I have them gathered. And you can see that here. And then I just take them and pinch it in the middle, just like you would do the ruffle. And I put it in the chenille stem, and I kind of fluff them out a little. I spread them apart. So the amount of deco mesh and the type of deco mesh you have is really going to depend on how full your wreath looks. If you have the real thin deco mesh, it's not going to be as thick, but if you have like the thicker deco mesh, your wreath will definitely be a little bit thicker and a little bit fuller. So now I'm just putting my tails on, and I'm finding the center, pinching it in the middle, and putting it into my chenille stem. Now I know from here I don't want to do anything else. I'm not going to add anything, so I just take my chenille stems and I roll it under. And just to hide it, you can clip it off if you want to. You can take a pencil and, you know, make little squigglies with it, wrap it around the pencils, however you want to do it. Now all I'm doing is taking the rest of what's on my, my lemon ribbon roll, and I'm going to make a big bow for the middle. That's why you don't see any tails there, because I knew I was going to put a bow there. And that's just a little tip on saving on some ribbon. If you know where you're going to place your bows, you don't have to worry about putting your tails there, because your bow is going to be so full and it's going to take up a lot of space that you don't have to worry about it. You're not going to tell that you don't have tails sticking out of the chenille stem. So I just have 3 ribbons that I'm rolling over on itself, and then I'm going to trim it off and fold it in half. Now once I have it folded in half, I'm going to cut slits about 1/2 inch on both sides, where they in the middle, as you see me doing right here. And there's my Samantha Pooh. She's always got to check on what I'm doing. So now I just take the remaining amount of ribbon and I cut the same amount from all 3 ribbons, and I'm going to make my tails. So once I have my length, what I'll do is I'll fold it in half and then cut the same, I'll cut the same little 1/2 inch slits on both sides, and then I'll use a chenille stem and some zip ties to add the tails and the loops. Sorry, I'm out of frame, guys. I wasn't thinking about the chenille stems, and I didn't have it close to me, so I had to take it off of that wreath frame to use one. So I'm just going to take 2 of the small zip ties and put them together kind of like I did on the frame with the yellow ones. And then I'll flip it over and I will actually put the chenille stem right in the middle. And then I'll just tighten it all down. Now here's my favorite part, and that's fluffing the bows. It's so important to make sure that you have your loops all fluffed out and separated, and make sure that they're all going in different directions so they can be spread out pretty evenly. Now the good thing about this wired ribbon, which I always use wired ribbon when it comes to making bows or tails, is that it's just really forgiving. As you can see, I'm pretty hard on mine, just because I'm trying to get them to move properly to where it's going in the different directions. Because sometimes if you don't get them to separate at the bottom where they're tied together, then they won't spread out very well. You'll see it kind of goes into just like more of a circle pattern, and you won't get as many of the loops in the middle of the bow. So that's why I'm pretty rough on mine, but like I said, it's really forgiving, and as long as you've got them tied together really well, you don't really have to worry about them coming unloose or breaking or any of that sort of thing. Now all I'm going to do is just take my scissors and just dovetail the ends of the tails. You can do them all at the same length, you can do them at different lengths, just however you feel like you want your tails to look. Now, I felt like something was missing out of, excuse me, after I put the ribbons in, it still kind of looked like it was needing something. So I know I went back and folded under these chenille stems. And this is one reason, y'all, I'm going to tell you, it's good that you fold it under, versus cutting them off is because you never know when you want to go back and add something. And that way you can untie them just like I'm doing here and add something to it again. And you don't have to worry about there not being enough space to be able to clamp everything down. Now, had I went in and trimmed those down instead of folding them under, then there was no way that I would have been able to go back and add these cute little bows on to the ends. So, just a tip for you guys. And actually here you can add lemons, flowers, anything of the sort, but I didn't have any at the time around me, and I didn't really want to add any flowers to it. I'm not that wreath maker that likes to add a lot of flowers to deco mesh wreaths and door hangers. I think they're very cute and they're very beautiful. But I really like to do that just when I'm working with grapevine wreaths. So once I have that, then all I'm going to do is take some of the hot glue and I'm going to hot glue the sign on there and call it a day. So I really enjoyed making this video. Thank you, Sonia, for hosting. Please be sure to check out the playlist and check out all the other beautiful creators that are participating in this challenge. And I hope you guys have a very blessed day. Thank you for stopping by.